A warm welcome once again to the Uxbridge FM History Show, and Ken Pearce joins us once again, Chairman of the Uxbridge Local History Society. Hi Ken, how are we doing?
Very well, thank you.
Now this one could be a good one, I think. It's a legendary story about the tunnel in Windsor Street.
Yes. Well, there's been a lot of discussion locally in recent months about a tunnel said to have been dug under Windsor Street between St Margaret's Church and the Queen's Head Public House, possibly during the reign of Queen Mary, Henry VIII's daughter. So in this talk, I'll try and give some facts that may help the discussion. Uxbridge developed as a market town in the 12th century, but initially, of course, there was no church there. But at that time, the church at Hillingdon was being run by Benedictine monks, so they decided to open a branch in the new town. A chapel was built there in the town centre, and very soon dedicated to St Margaret. But it was not a parish church. It was known as a Chapel of Ease of Hillingdon. That's why St Margaret's, although a medieval church, is not surrounded by a burial ground. For about 300 years, people who died in Uxbridge were buried in the churchyard at the top of Hillingdon Hill. That problem was resolved in 1576 when Henry, Earl of Derby, who was then Lord of the Manor, gave the townsfolk a piece of land for a cemetery, and a widow named Marjorie Legge paid for a wall to be built round the site. And these facts are recorded on a stone over the gateway at the southern end of Windsor Street. One event during the reign of Mary Tudor must be mentioned. The Queen attempted to restore to England the Roman Catholic faith spurned by her father. And Uxbridge seems to have been a stronghold of the Protestant faith. So that when 3 men were arrested and found guilty in London of opposing Catholicism, they were brought here to be burned at the stake. John Denley, Patrick Packingham, and Robert Smith all died horrible deaths here on Lynch Green in 1555. None of them were local men, but doubtless their deaths were meant to be a warning to Uxbridge inhabitants. And incidentally, in 1955, the 400th anniversary of those events, a memorial was erected to the memory of the martyrs in the old burial ground at the lower end of Windsor Street. Lynch Green, incidentally, was an open piece of land on the opposite side of Windsor Street, now occupied by the office block called Capitol Court. I return now to the story of St Margaret's Church as a Chapel of Ease of Hillingdon. As time went by, the people of Uxbridge became increasingly resentful. Their town was the largest settlement in the area and the economic heart of the district, but they couldn't run their own church. It was run from Hillingdon. Towards the end of the 17th century, a substantial legacy from a man named George Townsend enabled them to pay for a clergyman to conduct a regular morning service in the chapel and to say prayers in the afternoon. And the person appointed by the local people was called the lecturer. And thus the worshippers at last gained a measure of independence from Hillingdon. And in 1705, they raised a sum of £126 to build a house for their lecturer. They called it the Parsonage House, and it was erected at the western end of Whitehall Road. Change came at last in 1827, when the parish of Uxbridge was created. So now St Margaret's had a vicar, and the parsonage house became the vicarage. Looking back at all these events, there would appear to be no reason why a tunnel would ever be needed between the church and the inn opposite. Extensive alterations were made to the interior of St Margaret's in the 1980s. Some graves were found under the floor, but no sign of a tunnel. Furthermore, Windsor Street has been dug up many times in the last 250 years. Services below the road today must include water, sewerage, gas, electricity, telephones. There have been no reports of a tunnel or of subsidence as the work took place. I have been researching local history now for 60 years, and in that time, I have never come across a mention of a tunnel in any book, article, map, document, or other record. My conclusion is that no tunnel ever existed. However, the Queen's Head belongs to the Uxbridge United Welfare Trusts, who run the local charities. And I understand that the trustees are willing to fund an examination of the site from the inn cellars. That should be conclusive. It would be customary for me to end this talk by saying, if there's a tunnel under the road there, I'll eat my hat. That I cannot do. The only hat I have is a cap given to me last October by the members of the Uxbridge Local History Society to mark my 50 years as chairman. And it was carefully prepared and donated by Balcony Shirts of Windsor Street. I can't bear to eat it.
Thanks, Ken. Fantastic as always. I'd like to show you my cap from Balcony Shirts as well. This is what Scott made for Uxbridge FM. Very kind of him.
Yes.
So we don't think there's a tunnel, but you never know. There's always a chance.
Well, I hope I've put a reasonable statement.
It's like Loch Ness Monster. You may have just stopped all tourism to Uxbridge.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah. I sometimes think that people don't seem to realise what's involved in digging a tunnel. You know, I mean, you have to have a very good reason, don't you, to go to that effort?
Yeah.
Especially such a short distance as that, you could run across in 2 seconds. However, there we are.
Yep. Thank you very much, Ken. And we'll see you in March, no doubt, for more historic tales of Uxbridge.